Yeah, perhaps so. It's not definitely correct. People should not be resorting to ethnicity. I mean, the question is, how high of the priority of this administration has it put that agenda? That people should not be measured, because if you look at what has happened, almost every list of appointments that come out by the president or from the presidency, you know, people begin to look at where people are from, and they always find, most times, that disproportionately, the northern side of the country has received more appointments than any other group from the south.
No, the numbers don't say that. I'm sorry to say that, because when, at the heat of all of these things, we requested from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and we got all of the numbers for the chief executives of all of the government agencies in the country. And we put that online thereafter. They are obviously, and I'm not interested in saying there's nothing to gain by saying that there were more southerners in this position than those from the north. But those were the facts. But as I said again, from the point of view of the government, I don't think that is the most important thing, that Nigerians are identified by their ethnicity or regions. The president has made very clear on this, and this is why some of our key programs, like the social investment program, we did something that hasn't been done in the past in the country. The basis of recruitment into it is residency. Wherever you resided, whether Lagos, Hausa-speaking person in Lagos, or Igbo-speaking person in Borno, or where you reside is the basis of your recruitment, no longer state of origin. This is a significant development for the country.
Well, looking at, you know, I mean, from that time, from the time of the elections, quite a number of rhetorics came up. People were talking about how they were planned. I know that several times the president had to respond to that. His vice had to respond, beg your pardon, his deputy had to respond to that, you know, about plans to Islamize the country. And now we understand that, you know, the central bank has a debt management office, and the central bank have issued Sukuk bonds, and
yes,
you've seen the Christian Association of Nigeria kicking against that and saying this is unconstitutional. What is the response of the presidency to that?
Well, let me say that we are not interested in politicizing this issue, because our point of view, it is a purely technical issue, and I believe that our Minister of Finance would obviously be there and will offer all of the explanations that are necessary. However, we must take this from the perspective of entire developments that are happening in the finance sector in the world. The World Bank itself has a section for Islamic banking, and it will interest Nigerians to know that that department is headed by a Nigerian, a Christian Nigerian, heading the entire operations of the World Bank, dealing with Sukuk. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, Mr. David Cameron, the Prime Minister had made the plea to the Islamic world that, look, we in the UK, make us the center, the headquarters of Islamic finance. So UK, which, and without meaning to offend anybody, had in terms of our history, they had a big role in the Christianization of the country. Sukuk is everywhere in the UK. It's in Germany, it's in Hong Kong, it's all over the place. It's the African Development Bank is trying to move in. IMF is trying to get in. So what is wrong with Nigeria being there?
So you think that this is a misunderstanding of what Sukuk is about?
Absolutely, yes. Otherwise, it's just an access to funds that are available to carry out big projects that for which there's no money, and projects like that may probably not be executed where if those funds were not, you know, available. And the thing is also that it's a leveler in this country, as you know, and I don't know whether the numbers have changed. A few years ago, I know that NISARA in Ibadan, the Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic, indicated that about 80% of Nigeria's economy was being run underground, under the radar, without control by institutions of state. Now, a lot of this probably, I'm not saying is Muslim money, but there is a lot of distrust, you know, that on the part of some Muslims for existing institutions. So if they have money that can also be fed into the development process of this country, why don't we tap it? Why don't we type it?
Now, while there is, complaint by the Christian Association of Nigeria in terms of, the agenda, whatever it is that, Sukuk is meant to achieve, there's also complaint on the part of certain people who want to key into this process. They believe that the time frame given for the introduction of the Sukuk bonds are insufficient. They think that there's not been enough publicity and that the time frame of 6 days is totally insufficient for people to be able to, be aware of the existence of this fund, know what it is about, and to be able to key into it.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with this. I think I totally accept this is coming from home. In fact, my wife yesterday was complaining to me that she missed out because she had clearly indicated interest, but she was unable to meet the requirement by the end of yesterday's processes. So therefore, I do hope that this will be opened up so that more Nigerians will participate. Or, more than that, perhaps it's not a one-off thing. Because when you look at what is happening in other countries, it comes again and again and again. So if we miss this one, yes, perhaps we'll get opportunity the next time.
I understand that my colleagues have questions for you from Lagos.
Well, Garba, let me ask, looking at the statements perhaps credited to the Southeast National Assembly caucus, they are quoted to have clearly rejected the branding of IPOB as a terrorist group. They say such unilateral branding will close any door to amicable settlements of the grievances raised by the Southeast geopolitical zone.
Well, our own understanding is that the elite of the Southeast stands for a one united Nigeria. Grievances there are, and nobody denies them. And I'm fully aware that following all of the experience of the last few weeks, government understands that IPOC themselves got a traction because they cashed in on some of these elements that you are referring to. I want to assume that in the coming days and weeks, there will be several levels of engagement by the highest level of government in the country, and that people will be talking to people, and that problems will be addressed. But if anybody says that there is a rejection by them, the Southeast, because I think that it is advised, they are better advised to revise, those positions. Certainly, they are not in consonance with the law and the sentiment of the overwhelming elite of their origin.
Okay, about the funding of the group, because all over the papers is there awash that the government says they've traced the funding of IPOB to France and UK, and then those who wonder, so if government was able to quickly do this, how come they've not been able to tell us who are those funding Boko Haram? Well,
the evidence perhaps has been found, and I think that if you live or you have traversed the West Coast, for instance, you probably will be aware that funding is canvassed for IPOB among traders openly, without any pretensions about the fact that this was money traders, prosperous traders in those countries who are of Nigerian origin are putting together and they send them back home so that somebody, pursues this insurgent action against the government of Nigeria. Why is government not able to isolate funding for Boko Haram? It's perhaps more complicated than what we're seeing. And if you listen to the president at the United Nations, when he spoke, he met the US president, one of the key messages he took to the UN is the support we are seeking as a government for sources of funding to Boko Haram to be traced and blocked. And we are getting assurances, especially coming from the US government on this.
Mr. Shehu, that's real quick. If you're saying the president is talking about sourcing of funding to Boko Haram, but it took just about a day or thereabout for the source of funding for the independent or indigenous people of Biafra to be found out to be in France. That's real quick. Can we get such amount of speed in handling of issues of other kind in the country? For instance, the herdsmen attacks. They've been carrying guns and attacking farmers across the country, but they were never labeled as a terrorist group.
Yeah, because there is a difference between a criminal gang, criminal activity, and a terrorist activity. And I think from the definition we're getting, yes, the Fulani herdsmen are a criminal gang, and they're being dealt with in accordance with the law of the country. But IPOB, like Boko Haram, has a territory they have carved onto themselves. As a sovereign state of their own, they're claiming to show the willingness to invade neighboring states. They have raised concerns in neighboring Kogi, in Benue, and they have said they're interested in taking over Bayelsa and Rivers. That's exactly what Boko Haram has done with the flag and the taxation system. These certainly are not acceptable to the law of this country.